Snowbirds, listen up. You've been coming down to maybe Florida or really anywhere, renting a home every year, and you're trying to figure out, maybe we should buy, maybe we should keep renting. We're going to want to watch today's video because we're going to be talking about exactly that. Let's get into it. What's going on? It's Andrew with the Emerald Group and
AJ.
And we are right here in the sunny panhandle of Florida. And today we're going to be talking all about whether you should rent or buy a second vacation home. Should you continue snowbirding or do you own your own property and snowbird that way?
We've been getting calls, texts, Facebook messages, all kinds of communications from you guys concerning moving to the area, just questions about the area, and we absolutely love it. So please keep those coming to us. We love talking to you. And if you have any video recommendations, go ahead and put them down there in the comments for us. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and jingle the bell so that you get notified every time we do a video. We're doing videos everywhere from Pensacola to Panama City, since those are the areas that we cover, and everywhere in between.
So in this video, we want to do an unbiased look. Now keep in mind, we are realtors first, but we are going to try to give you all of the pros and cons that we can think of on either continuing to rent and snowbird out here, or of course, buying your vacation home. So talk to me about renting. What are the pros of renting every single year when you come down?
Sure. I would think some pros of renting down here would be the ability to try out different places. Even if you're in like the same area, maybe you love 38, maybe you go stay at Seaside one time, and then maybe you splurge a bit and you go to Alice Beach, or maybe you leave 38 and you go out to Destin. You have different options whenever you're renting. You're not limited to just that one spot.
And on top of that, not only trying out different areas, whether in this area you could try out different portions of the state, and then you could also try out different types of properties. Is it a condo? Is it a townhome? Is it a house in the middle of the city? Or is it a house on the water? Is it a condo on the water? So I definitely think that gives you some good options. What else can you think about?
I think kind of piggybacking off of that too, when we're talking about different options, maybe if you can't necessarily afford the type of property that you would want to vacation at, like to purchase it, maybe you really like that waterfront. Let's go all out. We'll talk about like waterfront on 38 or looking at some big bucks there, but you can afford to splurge once a year to go out there and spend a weekend or a week. That might be a good option then. Something else too would be the general upkeep. You don't have to worry about cleaning this place. You're gonna pay a fee, but you don't have to worry about like any maintenance or cleaning fees or insurance, mortgage, none of that. It's just a one-time fee, and you get to go stay in your little slice of heaven.
That is a pretty good point, because if you are getting some sort of maintenance done, or maybe you need to get somebody to go to the house and you don't live here full time, that can be a little bit taxing, especially in the day and age right now. As we're speaking, the market's crazy, and then I don't know what it is with the jobs right now, but even us real estate professionals who have really good relationships with a lot of vendors, even us, it takes us a long time to find people. I mean, prime example, literally right before we started shooting this video, one of our admin were like, hey, we can't find a pool person to go check out this pool. We're like on number 12 right now. Nobody will go out there. And this is the same kind of thing you have to worry about if you purchase versus if you are renting. You can just, hey, pay my cleaning fee, I'm done, man. That's kind of up to you now.
So we talked about the pros of renting. What about buying? What do you think are the pros of buying out here?
One of my favorite subjects. Now, again, I've got a dog in this fight, so please keep that in mind. But I think the biggest one is the amount of money that you're going to make in general. Mm-hmm. So when you buy a second home, a vacation home, a winter home here in our area at least, you generally, depending on where you purchase, have the option to rent it out. So you can make some rental income. And you can expect anywhere from about an 8 to 12% return based on the purchase price. By $500,000, you can expect around $50,000. Now that's gross, and there are a lot of fees and things like that, so that is not going to be take home. Please don't get confused on that. But it can definitely hedge against your investment in general, so that you're not dropping $500,000 on something, or $250,000, or $5 million, whatever the number is. That you're not dropping that on there, and it's not making you any money. So turning a liability into an asset.
And don't forget, you're building equity in that property every year. So not only are you making money from your rental income, but your net worth is increasing as your equity in the property increases.
Yeah, and just like any other property that you own, somebody else is helping you pay down your mortgage should you choose that option. Now, of course, just because you buy a second home does not mean you have to do that. So this might not even be a factor for you.
What else have you got for pros? I know you got them.
Yeah. Also, if we're comparing the two between renting and buying, which is exactly what we're doing, then another great pro is you don't have competition and you've got a steady, stable place to go back to year after year after year. And this is whether you vacation rent it out or not. So whether you use this purely as a second home, nobody else is ever in it, or you're renting it out most of the other time, but you want to go from December 1st to January 30th every single year. You want 2 months off. You have the same place to go to. You know the area around it. You know the restaurants that you like to go to, and you stay in one steady spot. So people that like a little bit of stability, this is definitely a great option.
Yeah, that's true. You're not having to work with anybody else or, wonder who else is trying to book the unit. You're not like trying to book it and saying, 14 other people are currently looking at this unit. You're like, oh no, I've already got it reserved for this week.
All right, now let's get into the cons of renting. So going back to just renting every single year, you're a snowbird, you're coming in to one area, different area, whatever, based on everything else we said. What are some of the cons that you have to directly think about?
Ooh, cons of renting. Again, we're realtors, so I'm like everything. Realistically looking at it, I would say the cons of renting would be, well, like you said, the pros of purchasing would be not having to compete for bookings. So I would say that would be a con of renting is, having to really plan your vacation ahead of time and getting that right unit that you wanted, especially if you've got like multiple generations of your family coming down at the same time and everybody's got to try to get work off at the same time and then also make sure like the unit, an accommodation that will accommodate all of you is available while, how many other people are trying to do the same exact thing. I would say that's a pretty big con of trying to rent, especially when you come to the same area consistently.
And another one to jump on top of that with is, what if your owner changes? What if the management changes? What if, there's 100 different things that can happen. What if somebody buys the one that you really like or one of the few that you really like and they're not renting it out, or their owner days are happening at the same time yours are? So that's definitely something to consider as well. What else can you think about?
Actually, I know you just piggybacked off of me, but I'm going to do it to you now because, anecdote time. We have one under contract right now, a condo purchase where there are multiple bookings that extend past the closing date, and the sellers and purchaser, they have decided that they're going to cancel all of those bookings. So everybody who's booked at that property, they're not anymore. The buyers, they might actually reinstate some of those bookings. They're going to take all the contact information and everything, and they're potentially going to rebook them, but they might not, and it might be at a different rate.
And that's going to cause a little bit of a headache for everybody that was just canceled. They think they've got their vacation done, they've got tickets paid for, ready to go, and now they don't have a place to stay. And in this situation, because I do know the situation, this is happening like in the next 30 days. So imagine being 30 days out from renting a place, and then all of a sudden you get a cancellation. It says, hey, sorry, ownership has changed. We're not doing this. Hopefully it books back up. But if not, in this case, it sounds like they're going to probably book a good chunk of them, if not all of them. But they might not, because we have had that happen before. We've had properties where somebody buys it and they just go cut them all off. Now, a lot of times, most owners are going to continue it. And especially if they've already got an agreement with a company or something like that, but not everybody does. So that is definitely a really big con I wasn't even thinking about. And we just had that situation actively right now.
Yeah, it's going on right now. And they just made the call. I think we closed on like the 17th or something like that. It's like coming up pretty quick. No, it's the 31st. But either way, it's closing this month. So all these bookings, and there were multiple. I think all of June and July were already booked. They've got quite a few in May. And there's one that like spans across like May, June. So it's really, really unfortunate for, the folks that are renting. And obviously they'll all get their refunds back, but who's to say that the place that they do book or are able to book, like, one, are there going to be any vacancies, and two, what's the rate going to be?
Yeah, especially booking last minute in the middle of summer in a hot tourist destination like Destin, Florida, or 30A,
yes.
Fort Walton, like any of those places, that is going to be wildly expensive if they can't find something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something else, another con of renting is you don't know those prices, because they're going to fluctuate, right? You might look at, a condo or something in maybe January and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's the rate for this condo. Well, not on like 4th of July weekend. Like these rates, they're going to fluctuate, quite a bit. So that's another thing is you don't really know what to expect, especially as, inflation continues to rise, so will those prices. So that's another con I would say of renting is you never know what those prices are going to, look like the next time time you go to book.
Exactly. And another con that I was thinking about too are the rules. So when you're renting, you're going to have certain rules and certain things you've got to abide by.
Yeah, for sure. Like, what if you want to bring your family pet? You know, you've got like a little Yorkie. You know, I'm gonna go with a Yorkie. You know, for reasons. But
because of your Yorkie. No, that's a really good point, because most vacation rentals, particularly in the condo space here in our area, do not allow pets for for non-owners in any capacity. Yeah. And that's pretty widely done in our area. I would say probably almost 90% of our condo vacation homes. Now, when you get into homes, it's a little bit different. Most HOAs give you a little bit more leeway. All right, as far as other cons, do we have anything else we can think of when it comes to renting or snowbirding every year?
Oh, you know what? Cars. Like, what about transportation? You know, if you own the place and you know exactly what the parking situation is going to be, you might even leave a car there, you know, and just have it sitting and waiting for you in the garage or whatever. So maybe put it on Turo or something if you're renting it out to people. But if you're just renting a spot, then chances are you're also renting a car. So there's an additional fee.
That's very true. I didn't even think of that. And going back to the condo space, a lot of the condos have dedicated parking spaces, sometimes inside of a parking garage or underneath the building, that they will not let guests go into at all. So if you own one, you can always keep a car there if you wanted to. That's one option. Or you've just got a parking space if you do rent one. Still would be an expense, but you would at least have a parking space generally covered in a lot of these options. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And then you bring up a really good point too. If it's a vacation house, you can just throw one right in the garage, ready to go, taken care of. And I think, now don't quote me on this, I'd have to talk to my Airbnb girl, but I'm pretty sure you can use it as an additional rental in a lot of these. I've been seeing that a lot, people throwing Jeeps in there, you know. Jeeps are not inexpensive, but dropping a nice Jeep or maybe even a golf cart in there so that they can use that as an additional expense. Hey, it's $5,000 a week to rent here, but for an extra $500, you get access to this golf cart or to this Jeep, and that could be an extra additional stream.
Absolutely. I think that about covers it for rentals. I think
that's a pretty good little list to not rent and to buy with us.
Okay. Well, since obviously we're totally not biased towards purchasing, let's talk about the cons of purchasing.
Okay, there's actually a lot of them. There kind of is.
There's probably only like one thing.
I think there's like several. So we've got, first you're going to have a mortgage on it. Mortgage means risk. When you rent, if you have a bad year, you get laid off from your job or something like that, you can just step right away. Now, if you're using this as a second home, not as a vacation rental, in your off time, you may be forced to do a vacation rental with it should you lose your job or should something happen, you need a little extra income or something like that. So that does hurt a little bit on the second home portion. But I mean, I guess all in all, that's kind of a bonus because at least you have the option. But if the market turns, right? And, something happens, eventually the market's going to turn a little bit. We don't think we'll ever see anything. Well, I can't say ever, but we don't see any indicators of it doing what happened in 2007, 2008 timeframe when Lehman Brothers collapsed. But it could shift a little bit. And in that event, if you had to liquidate your property or something like that, that could be something that you have to think about. And whereas a rental, if something were to happen and you don't really have the funds to go on vacation, you could just go ahead and put your hands up and walk away and do a little staycation there in New York or wherever you're at.
And go camping.
I don't know why camping was what you chose, but I like
because it's a lot cheaper than renting a condo.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right over my head. Okay. Yeah, no, that actually makes sense. You might have to go camping or glamping, okay?
No. We're out of money. We're just going.
So that could be a thing. You might have to get rid of your big, beautiful beach house and stay in a sleeping bag out in the middle of nowhere.
And watch the beautiful stars.
And that's not good. Nobody likes that.
Not in New York City. I don't think you can see the stars. You might get arrested.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're like in a sleeping bag outside. I don't know.
I don't know. New Yorkers, let us know. Comment down below. I don't know what the rules are. No, but you do bring up a good point. You might have to actually do some other plans, do something more expensive. But that's, in a weird way, kind of a pro for renting because it gives you that option, as we kind of mentioned before.
Definitely. Oh, and, you can't, you can cancel a rental, but you can't just cancel paying your mortgage. You can be like, you know what, I can't afford it this month, so I'm not going to pay my mortgage. But you can be like, you know what, I really can't afford a vacation this year, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. Maybe you have a fee. So there's...
Yeah, and, avoid like foreclosure and lots of bad events. So yeah, very, very good point.
Yeah.
And if you are using this as a vacation home as you go forward for a little extra money, which is, I think, a very intelligent move to do, you are going to have a little bit of extra pain trying to find a rental manager or even renting it yourself, which is a lot bigger of a task than a lot of people recognize. I've had, dozens of clients at this point that were, hey, I'm just going to VRBO it and Airbnb it myself. I can do all of it. I can do this. And then the phone calls start coming in, and about 3 to 6 months into season, like during the off season, it's fine. But when season hits, which is, March, April timeframe, it's really a little bit later than that. But since COVID, it's kind of started a little bit around March and April. Then you've got to start fielding all those phone calls. And it's a lot from what I've been hearing. Now, I don't manage any myself personally, but I do know a girl that does that, and it's essentially a full-time job. And I don't know if I would want to mess with that personally.
I don't. Not for long-term or short-term. I have zero desire to mess with property management whatsoever. And you won't have a hard time necessarily finding the company to do that for you, but it's just an added expense that you're going to probably want to hire someone to handle that bit of work for you. So you can just sit back and collect your check as opposed to having another full-time job.
Yeah, definitely. And they are a little bit more expensive than a long-term management company that catches a lot of people off guard, particularly people that watch our videos to say, hey, this is a great idea. I want to go down there and buy. And we love that. Don't get me wrong. Go ahead and reach out to us, call, text, email, carrier pigeon, whatever you want to do. But just note that the rental management fee is a little bit higher. So earlier when I said, it should make about $50,000 gross, well, the net is going to be much less because you can expect to pay. The lowest I have seen so far is around 18%, and I have seen it as high as 35%. And the most common, just so you don't think, 18 doesn't sound that bad. I've only seen 18 one time, and it's a girl we currently use and suggest to everybody because she's beating the numbers and everything else. But the average, I would say, is probably 25 or 30%, somewhere in that range for most of the bigger companies out here. And that is a huge chunk of your potential income.
Yeah, definitely. You tend to pay less from what I'm seeing with like the boutique companies, but your bigger names that are kind of nationwide, they tend to charge a bit more, but they've got a significantly higher, overhead, and they've got, people just ready to go as far as like folks for cleaning and maintenance and what have you. Like it's all ready to go. So they have to charge more because they have people consistently just sitting there on standby waiting for, them to call with an issue.
And when you do that, I don't want to turn this into an Airbnb/VRBO or vacation conversation or anything, but you do have to watch out for the different things that they are and are not paying for that catches a lot of people off guard. I found one for 20%. But you got to pay all the cleaning fees on the side, but you don't know that if you don't have multiple of these vacation rentals. So that is something you definitely want to make sure that you're going with your agent on or somebody that is very experienced in that realm, because that can make a really big difference to your bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. What else have you got for cons?
Well, anytime you own a property, you are going to have upkeep year round. And this is whether you're going to do this as a second home or as a vacation. Either way, you're going to have some sort of upkeep. And that can come with its own little list of semi-cons underneath it, right? Like if you're doing a second home and nobody's going to be in this property, that means the lights aren't being turned on, nobody's watching the gas, nobody's watching the water, nobody's watching the electricity. Just in general, the house is not being cared for, so you might have to have somebody go over there from time to time. Hopefully you make a friend, and if not, you might have to pay somebody to swing by your property and just make sure that it's not gushing full of water, a pipe didn't burst or anything like that.
No squatters.
Someone
else is vacationing in your vacation, right?
I've seen that in condos before. I've walked in on 2 different squatters before in my life. True story. And one of them had a needle in his arm. Super polite guy. A little methed out. But real story. Like I'm not even messing around. I opened it up and I was like, there's a mat on the floor. And then I walked to the side. The air conditioner was overflowing going into the thing. And they were laying in here with a needle in their arm actively. And literally I walked in. I was like saying my name, hey, realtor, hey, realtor. And then, I heard some rustling and I was like, there's somebody here. Get out. Like there was no furniture in this place. This was not used as a vacation rental. This was a condo though. It was just vacant at the time, which is pretty unusual. So I think that's why they chose it. And the nicest guy came around the corner, literally all like sticking it out of his arm. He was like, I'm sorry and whatever. And just took his little mat and a couple of his little pieces of whatever and just got up and walked away. So, definitely something to consider, especially if this is like a second home or something like that you might, find something. Now, the that's super rare. I don't want to put
Right.
that in the con section, but it is something to think about that, you don't know if a pipe is going to burst and that cause a ton of damage, or the house burned down, or the condo, or whatever. Now, if you're doing a condo, most of the time, at least in some of the bigger condos and the resorts and things like that, they're going to have somebody that can come by and kind of watch this. They'll know if a pipe bursts. It'll be very obvious because there's like 12 stacks or 15 or even 6 stacks of condos. Like, they're going to know that the pressure is moved and stuff like that. So what else can we think about when it comes to cons for purchasing?
I got one.
Okay.
So what if, you want to bring more family with you? Maybe you purchase this second home thinking, me and my spouse and our children, we're going to use this. So we're going to get, a property of a size that will accommodate that. But then you're like, oh man, but we've made these great friends, and our kids love their kids, and it would be so cool to, go on vacation together, and we can, take turns, you watch all the kids this night, we'll watch all the kids the next night, turn it into a couple of date nights or something. But there's no space because you purchased, with one thing in mind. So then it's a question of, can we, rent something somewhere else for our friends or grandparents or whoever. So that would be a con, I would say, is that you can't increase the size of a property that you purchased.
That makes sense. And you don't know if they're going to be able to get in the same complex or the same neighborhood as you, especially if this is a last minute thing. Hey, mom, can so-and-so and come over, come with us. They've been talking about taking a vacation. They're going the same time. Anything like that. Now, I would imagine that exact situation is pretty rare, but just in general, the idea of it is, well, we've only got a 3-bedroom place. The kids are going to have to be double bunked. We're going to have to figure out what to do with the other couple. They don't want to stay in the pull-out couch. They're going to have to get a different rental, and you can't really change that.
Yeah, definitely.
And another thing on top of that is whenever you are going to rent it out, let's say that you block donor days for something, and you just love coming to Destin and July 4th weekend because of all the fireworks and the boats and the pirate ship and all that stuff. You don't know we have a pirate ship out here? We do. Like a real looking one. Now, it's not real. It's got, whatever, normal engines. But my point, it's really cool. We use it for a festival and all this stuff. But my point is, if you decide that's when you want to come down every year, then you're going to hurt your rentals if you are vacation renting it, because that is going to be one of the hottest weeks of the entire year. In fact, I think on average you get 3 times the amount that you would generally get just for that week alone. And you're going to lose out on those profits if you are vacation renting it. But if it's a second home, well, you didn't really lose anything. Nobody was sitting in it anyway, so you can just go wherever you want. So I guess that's a pro. So pretend like we just slid that to the pro section. I think that's everything I've got for pros and cons. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's about it. We talked about pros and cons of purchasing and renting, and I would just say, if you guys have any places that you've stayed here that you really liked, maybe you stayed at Seascape or the Matador or something like that, go ahead and comment down below with what your favorite place was to vacation in our area.
I like that. That's very good. Well, that's all we got. I guess we'll see you next week. See ya.
Bye, y'all.